Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we sit down with Scot Nery. Scot is an awesome juggler, magician, entertainer, and now he helps entertainers with their branding, with their marketing, and with a whole lot. This guy is a genius. I had the opportunity to work with him, and you can hear in his story that because he starts doing magic on the street, he learns how to actually entertain people from stranger to entertained and want to give you money. And I think that a lot of times one of the lessons that we see in magic is that when you have it rough in your magic early on, that's a blessing because you end up really needing to earn your chops and get really good. And that benefits you for a long time. And you hear how that benefits Scot, and then he kind of runs away from magic and entertaining in general because of it. It's an awesome story, and we learn a lot from Scot, and I think you will too. Here it is, an awesome episode with the one and only Scot Nery. Scot, how are you?
Woo! I am great.
Oh man, this is a wild blast. I don't know who listening to this gets the opportunity to Zoom with you, but there's nobody that gets on a Zoom call with as much excitement as you do. Always, it's like when you arrive at a house that there's a dog at. You know what I mean? It's just like you love going to that house. Like just wow, there's a lot of excitement going on. So you even have fun written on your wall behind you. I've got crooked pictures, so yours is way sharper. How are you? How you been?
Oh man, I'm awesome. I'm just like loving life. I'm way too blessed and privileged.
Why so? Why do you say that?
I have a baby boy. The pandemic hit and I get to spend so much more time with him and my wife, and I have expanded and grown and learned so much about myself through this new world of global connection and interactivity. I've gotten to talk to like a million performers that I never would have gotten to talk to, and I started coaching and consulting them. So it's been amazing for me in the past year.
Dude, I love it. One of the things that like already quite obvious things is there are negative words and positive words that we can use to refer to this period of time, and saying things like connection and opportunities and all that different stuff is like, it's the right type of language in my mind about how to take on any sort of challenges, to look at the positives. I had a post on Facebook recently where I was like, stop at your virtual events saying, if I could be there, it would be great, but we can't. So all we have is this, like stop telling people this is worse. It's not worse. Like it's better. It's different, like capitalizing the difference. So I'm already excited about kind of the way that you're even thinking about the universe right now, which is really exciting. And I think there's like, there's some people that have squeezed the lemon of the virtual space and really taken, as much positivity and joy out of it as they could. And there's people who have not, who have chucked the lemons and opted to hold their fingers or cross their fingers or something and see if this will pass. And I think there's a lot of fun opportunities. So let's kind of get into it. I know we're going to get back into virtual very quick, but I only bring magicians on this podcast. So I was like, okay, can you just double check with me that you're a magician? I mean, you said that you had the same problem when you were given the opportunity to perform at the Magic Castle, and you did. So if you're enough of a magician to perform at the Magic Castle, you're enough of a magician to be on the. No, but you've done a ton of different magic stuff, even though you're magic adjacent for the most part right now, but kind of walk us through your world into magic. How did you get here? How did you get into magic?
I started doing magic I did magic tricks when I was 7 years old. I got a magic kit. I remember I went to Disney World with my family, and all I wanted to do was, I heard there was a magic store there. I'd never been to a magic shop. So that's all I cared about. And I like cried and complained until I got to go to the magic shop and buy some like piece of plastic thing. I was fascinated by it. And then when I was young, I showed a magic trick to my neighbor, and he said, come with me into my basement. And then I went down, and there were just magic tricks all lining the walls, like all these like and he loved like kind of self-working tricks, so it just looked amazing, you know. Like you see square circle and hippity hop rabbits and like some duck that can pull a wooden duck that can pull a cart out of a deck.
Matilda. Yeah, I've got Matilda. I've got him. He's a great duck.
Zigzag.
He's in our show. He's in our show. I can. He's right over there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So it was just like this. He was an amateur magician or like part-time pro.
Yep.
He went to the Chavez school and he showed me like so much about smoothness and showmanship and like smiling while on stage and everything that I don't do anymore because I learned what the value of that was. I learned how cool it was and what was the reasoning behind it. And it empowered me so much to go out and start doing pro shows when I was 11, and then traveled around the world as a street performer and juggler. And I've done a lot of magic stuff here and there, but I'm kind of like, I dabble in a million different things.
And if you were to, just for context for somebody, if somebody was to ask you about your street performing show, if they were to say, what percentage of it was magic and what percentage of it is like, busking, juggling, other things like that, just for context, how much of it was you doing magic and how much of it was you doing other things?
I did a little bit of magic in my first year, and then it turned to like a juggling show. Then it turned to pancake flipping. I cooked a pancake and then I flipped it. People would watch. They'd be like, why is he cooking a pancake? And some of them were like, it's the street. So there were people that were hungry. And then at the end of the show, I'd flip it under my leg and behind my back and I'd spin around and catch it in the pan. And that was the finale of my show.
Wild. It seems like you, for lack of a better way to say it, you caught the magic bug and then you got the vaccine. Or, a lot of magicians are like, I'm 60 now and I got hooked at 7 and I haven't looked back since. And it seems like you caught the bug, you got into performing, and then you found some other ways that you could perform and share and kind of do similar things. And now magic is one of the things that you do and not the one fixation, that you have, or the one obsession. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I got like locked into by being taught by this classical magician. I got locked into the one idea of how it could be. In our local IBM club, it wasn't very creative group of people. And I didn't go to a lot of the meetings, but everything was a bot trick, pretty much everything. It was recommended that you use the pattern that's suggested with the trick, right. Yeah. Or you go with the tarbell racist stuff or whatever. And so that's what I thought magic was. So when I would show somebody a magic trick that they'd seen before, I'd show it to them the way they'd seen it before. Right. And then they would say, oh, I've seen that. That's cool. Good. But then when I did juggling, it happened in the moment. Mm-hmm. Like no matter how many times somebody had seen juggling, if you're juggling knives in front of them, you're still like risking your life.
Right.
So it took me a long time before I realized, oh, that's not the only way to do magic. But I left magic because I thought it was repeating stuff that people had already seen.
It's interesting. And I guess it's a real benefit because I think many magicians, like one thing I like to say about magic is that like to do some magic is easy. As in like you can buy the stuff from the store, you can read the stuff from the book, like you can do it. And a lot of magicians get their performance time in doing stuff which is not theirs, bought in a store, easy to do, read the words that it says, which is fine. You're starting, you're learning magic. It's totally fine. And they kind of like sneak their way into performing by doing other people's lines, jokes, bits, and tricks for however many years until they've got a 95% show they can put in 5% of their own. And they're 90% show they can put in 10% of their own. And so on and so on. You kind of sneak into it. For sure, that's how I did it, right? Like for sure I did it. I was just, okay, I'll do this trick. I'll do it like that guy. And then okay, once I will try something that's unique, and then eventually you get to kind of stuff that's your own. It feels like maybe magic allowed you to get in front of some people or allowed you to kind of go there and perform in that way, but that you just kind of went right to doing your own thing because you didn't find that newness for people in magic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's unoriginality is, I'm pretty in favor of it, actually. I'm in favor of trying, like, I listened to so many stand-up comedy albums and memorized how to do the exact rhythm of the stand-up comedy. Like getting in their shoes and doing the thing that other people have done is awesome. And like, I think that's a great path. For some reason, there was a staleness that I connected with magic that eventually that I wanted to get out of. And this magician that I learned from, my early mentor, was he had like a few jokes that were kind of like a preacher would do a joke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not really that funny, but everybody laughs anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had these kind of a few jokes, but I started like thinking, oh, what if I just like was goofy, and I started breaking out of his style of doing stuff when I was a teenager too, like figuring out what that was. Yeah. And the comedy thing started to break me out. And then I realized that I could do other stuff.
One thing I think about is magicians who performed on the street, and that busking is one of those things where like, if you do it right, like it's proper hard in the sense of like, you got to draw the crowd, you got to get to actually give you money, and you got to be like entertaining enough for somebody to actually watch the whole thing. And I think that like it is, it's hard, and it also is a type of performing which actually resembles what being a pro is like, which I'm not saying busking is a pro. You can be a full-time pro busker, but I think that there's other ways into magic which don't resemble what the life of a pro is like. Like you like one time do a show at your synagogue's event or something like that. And it's not the same as you needing to have your rhythm, you needing to have your sharp beginning, your sharp middle, your sharp ending. You need to know your lines, know the lines to actually get the money, know the lines to get people to it. Can you talk about how that was or wasn't an important experience for your learning to perform?
I did it as school. So my next mentor was, I was working in a hotel and I got a ticket to see a show, and it was like a musical dance show. And then in the middle was a juggler named Frank Olivier. I don't know if you know him, but he's incredible performer. He was like, yeah, come on over. I said, I can juggle too if you want to pass sometime. And then he was like, yeah, come on over to my place. I got this loft. It's so cool. We'll pass. And I was like, oh, and I took his card and I never called him.
Oh my gosh.
But eventually like I got dragged back into his world and started hanging out with him. And he encouraged me to go on the street. He said, it's like the hardest school. So that's why I did it, because I wanted to learn the hard way, and it is very hard. It's probably terrible right now. I mean, not just right now, but like every public space in America is pretty much commercialized. So where you could perform where there are people that isn't commercialized or isn't privately owned, then that's probably a high crime area. But it was great. I went to New Orleans in 2000. On April 1st, I drove to New Orleans. It was super hot. No other street performers were there. And I was just on the street going, hey, do you want to see, I'm going to do some fire eating. And then people would walk by, and then crackheads would come up to me and say, no, you got to shout, man. Do it like this.
The homeless population was teaching you how to get money. They're like, okay, man, they're feeling bad for you. They're like, dude, exactly. You gotta, the fire is not helpful. That's
exactly
hilarious.
So you pretty much suck for a year on the street, at least a year. And then I was also, because I jump around, because I'm like always wanting to learn new stuff, and because I wanted to really train on the street, I didn't want to just like get into the science of how it works. And there is like a very scientific way to approach it so that you get your crowd. At the beginning, you don't really do much. You build up anticipation. You promise one dangerous thing at the end, and then you do that and you collect money. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to learn how to entertain. So I was constantly like doing like different tricks, different things. I like found a karate vest in the trash and I put it on, and I told people to punch me in the chest to like draw a crowd. I would like give out cash to try to like, I would be like, here, anybody want $1? And nobody would take it. So then people would gather around to see why I'm trying to give away $1. Like all the like, yeah. So I was constantly poking around. So I sucked for longer than most street performers.
That seems like something to me that is unique. I think that especially in magic, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but like, you kind of do your 7 tricks forever until you like do an 8th, like the number of magicians that are now as a full-time professional magician still doing the invisible deck that got them here, which again, no problem with the invisible deck. It's probably the strongest card trick ever, but like you do it exactly as you did it 15 years ago when you entered Magic. Like there's not a lot of, Harrison Greenbaum says like break stuff. Right? Like just introduce something that's just going to break stuff, like try weird stuff. And like a magician could go, or not to throw magicians, a performer could go their whole entire career and not find a karate vest and decide to put it on the next day for people to punch them. What made it so that you were so willing to just be bonkers or do something just random and try it in the spot tomorrow? Like, what do you think is part of that secret, or why were you doing that?
Part of it that was great was I was an underdog and I was a nobody, and people didn't really, and I didn't have any reputation to protect. I didn't have any success behind me. That was a great position to be in to learn. I kept that mindset for a long time because of low self-esteem, I think, but it was really like helpful for me in that thing. And then also, as I kept that mentality, I kept on thinking that I needed to get better and I needed to strive harder. Then when I started meeting my heroes, all that stuff started to dissolve. I did a show in San Francisco where I did a cooking show. A magician, Paul Nathan, he had a theater in San Francisco that he was running, and he invited me to do my cooking show there because I did pancake flipping. So he thought I did a cooking show. So I was like, yeah, my cooking show. Okay, I'll be ready in 2 weeks. So then I did like a parody cooking show in a theater where I cooked food and people ate it. And I had my own theme song. I ran 3 nights a week. It was killer. And then after the show, I would go take a taxi across town, and I was the headliner in a burlesque show. So again, I wasn't a burlesque performer, but I was the finishing act. And I had my picture on a billboard, and I had a theme song with my name. And I was like, wow, I'm just too big for San Francisco right now. Like, I need to go where I'm still the underdog. So I moved to LA, and I like won this. I tied for first in this one-man show competition immediately. And I was in a show with Bill Maher, and I did better than him in the show. And then I was like, oh man, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm done. I did it. Like it was a very short-sighted view. Yeah. But it was this.
I'm really interested by it because I think that like I have also felt, and I don't talk about being a good performer because I don't, I just, it's just not something I talk about. Like in my mind, I'm like, there's unlimited great performers, and like, I'll talk about, some other stuff, but I didn't realize that I was doing 5 shows a week every week for 2 years minimum, because of just the way that we were doing stuff with the Toronto Magic Company. And about 70% of those audiences were for Dave & Buster's guests who did not know they were going to see a magic show. Like they came in to go to Dave & Buster's, and then they were sold at the door by someone, me, that there's a package with the magic show and some games. And then they go up to the theater, which they did not know that they wanted to be in. They probably don't really want to be in all that much. And then the mother effer who actually sold them the damn ticket at the front is the opener for the show. And they're all looking at each other and they're going like, isn't this the guy who sold me the tickets downstairs? And my opening line had to be like, I know what you guys are thinking. Like, is this the charlatan who sold me? And anyways, what ended up happening is, those shows were good. They were fine. And then Ben and I went on a little road trip to perform in a few different locations around the States. And all of these amazing performers saw us performing, and they were going bonkers about how funny we were, how many jokes per minute, how strong the magic was, like all this different stuff. And like Ben and I had these moments where it was like, shit, man, we're like actually good. Like we've been in our own bubble of like hard situations. We've been doing multiple shows per week. We give each other notes after every show. We were just kind of in our own bubble, and then we go out and we're like, well, crap, we're actually good. Like, we still talk about ourselves being not good, not funny, stupid show, like just the vernacular that we use to refer to our stuff. But like, Yeah, it kind of happened. And it was a weird moment where it was like, okay, and now all of a sudden I'm like an authority-ish in my own way, talking about this subject because my mentors are equivalently as good. Maybe I'm better in some way, maybe, but it's not like there's this gargantuan gap that I thought was there. So I do relate to that feeling of like, you're kind of in your own world, and then all of a sudden you get kind of put into the world where there's all these benchmarks, and you end up being higher than you thought you were, and you're like, well, crap. So I feel that. I definitely never felt to myself, what's up from here? How do I do that? So talk to me about kind of what you mean by that and how that happened.
Well, I was crushed by it. I was like, really, it was a real identity crisis. So that the one-man show competition I got into was voted on by the audience. I was new in LA. I had one friend come to one of the shows in this, it was like 6 shows or something. I had one friend come. Everybody voted for 2 different acts in the show. So I got voted best by everyone else's friends. Like, and then I won. I'm there like tied for first in this competition. There's like a celebration. And then I walk home alone, like just going, now what am I trying for? And I think it happens to a lot of performers where we forget what our mission was in the first place. We get caught up in like trying to impress other magicians, or we get caught up in the idea of like whatever, and we forget the magical moment that caused us to get into it, that still sticks with us. That like feeling of giving people hope, or that's what got me into magic, was the feeling of giving people hope. And when I saw professional athletes or great jugglers or great other things, it gave me hope that I myself as a human could go beyond what I thought was possible for a human to do. So I forgot about that. And so when I did this thing, and then I was still doing some street shows to make money in LA, and I was doing some other stuff. And then I had the opportunity to work on this show about propaganda. I was making this show about magic, propaganda, and juggling and different stuff going together. And I lied my way into a marketing company, and I worked there, and I was like, this is it. Maybe I'm just going to stop performing because I can get better. I can see a lot of room for improvement in marketing. Yeah. So I did that for months. I got a call from the World Busker Festival in New Zealand, which they don't really call people. Most people submit to them. Mm-hmm. The lady Jody said, hey, do you want to come and perform at the World Busker Festival? And I was like, well, what do I have to do? She was like, we'll send you the contract, you sign it, and then we'll send you a plane ticket. And I was like, okay.
You're like, that sounds like a lot. Is there do you have a lighter version of that?
I did the things that she said and flew out to New Zealand, and it was incredible. Just like I was surrounded by brilliant performers, and the community, everybody was like, I met a bee farmer on my first day. Like everybody was like, you're a street performer? Come with me. I'll give you a free meal. Like everybody, it was like, yeah, it was like honorable, and the huge crowds and stuff like that. And so I quit the marketing job before I got back on the plane to come back. And that has like motivated me, like to know that one thing is to know that I'm not the best. And another thing is to just know that I want to push everybody else forward. So if I can be the person that everybody else is an underdog to, then that's totally worth it.
Yeah. And first of all, a lot of crazy moments there. First thing is, can you just give us context as to what you mean by lied your way into a marketing job? What?
Yeah. So the first thing that happened was it was a Craigslist post for a designer. And I responded with like a funny cover letter that was like 3 sentences long. That was like, I hope you pay me a lot of money. The assistant got the email and she thought it was funny. So she showed it to the boss. She sent it to the boss. The boss thought that it was an actual submission. So the boss immediately called me up and invited me in for an interview. When I came in for the interview, I didn't really have that much experience. I didn't really lie, but I was very creative in how I answered questions. I was like, well, show me some of the past work that you guys have done. And then I started critiquing all the things that her past designers had done. And she was like, whoa. So I guess I came in with some value of actually knowing how to do things better, but I didn't have the experience that she was
Right.
looking for at all.
Did you like that job?
Yeah.
It was a fun job for you?
It was not fun, but I liked it. So what I did was I didn't know what I was doing and I was terrified of getting fired every single day. So I would take the work, do it. Then at night I would take it and upload it to forums, to all these design forums. They would give me feedback on it and I would fix the work, read a graphic design book at night, and then go into work with better work.
It's like when we end up in a field that we don't belong in or we don't have experience in, we oftentimes put more work into any independent thing than in the fields that we have all the experience in. It's like, wow, I'm so good at this. I'll just, like put on a karate outfit and let people punch me and like just give it a whirl versus like, okay, I have an assignment. I'm going to like read a book, try it, get feedback, try it again, read another book and then go in with notes on my own stuff, which maybe doesn't always track. So I guess kind of, it seems like it was exciting, like the other stuff, while magic and performing felt like it was boring and there was no ceiling. This felt like there was the magic felt like there was a ceiling. This kind of felt like there was no ceiling as to how much you could improve. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think that's been a real hard thing for me in my career has been, I am constantly pushed to the next exciting thing instead of following through on the old thing. And so I've learned a lot of skills. I have like so many different avenues that I've traveled down and so many things that I wanted to get good at because it was the next exciting thing around the bend. So those things come skipping ahead to right now, what I've done in the pandemic and consulting with people, all those things connect for me now. I see like the connections between, somebody thinks they need a website, right? And then I go, oh, maybe you need a one-page website that like does this job really quickly, but your audience is these people, you're marketing to these people, you've got this problem with your psychology, you've got this problem with your performance. Let's fix all these things really quickly so we can get moving on to getting you paid work. So that's been like,
it's almost never a website, by the way. It's never, right. It's almost never that I just desperately need a website and then it'll all work.
Yes, totally. And it's not, people are looking for heroes. I think they're looking for somebody to come save them a lot of times. And sometimes that hero is a website. Sometimes that hero is, they think like, oh, all my career, I've just never gotten the marketing thing down. Yep. And I'm like, you've been working for 20 years. You have something in marketing.
Yeah.
You're doing okay, man.
Yeah, you're doing something. You just don't realize exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
I want to talk, before we get all the way to virtual, I would love to talk about Booby Trap. This show you ran in LA for years. And, not only was it like more performance opportunity, more kind of opportunity to see what's going on in the minds of audience members, but it also kind of put you in the position of a booking agent, or at the very least booking talent, and just talent of all sorts, magicians, burlesque, jugglers, everything, and just trying to understand. So maybe for people that don't know, can you explain what Booby Trap is and then kind of explain what that was like for you?
Yeah. So Booby Trap is a circus variety show, basic lineup show of 14 acts or 15 acts doing 4 minutes each. We have a house band and I'm the host, and it's comedy and craziness. So we'd have like aerialist, like a trapeze artist, close the show usually. We'd have dynamic visual acts, magicians, stand-up comedians, ventriloquists, balloon artists. We had this lady make a dress on stage with a stapler. Wow. We had just all kinds of weird stuff. And we had some celebrities pop in and do stuff. And so it ran every single week without stopping, every single Wednesday for almost 5 years until the pandemic hit. It became the number one show in LA, according to TripAdvisor, and it had 5 stars on all the review sites. It was pretty baller. It was like my church, and it was like church for a lot of people, a place for people to get together and have like an amazing time. So like people like badasses who were traveling around the world and performing corporate gigs, they'd come to LA and do 4 minutes on stage for me for the show, and have a great time after doing some gig that took them 3 days to do an hour for corporate people who are eating salads.
Yeah. Talk to me about what you learned doing all that. Like what was the big lessons for you in 5 years of every Wednesday shows?
Consistency was as I said, that was a weak spot for me. So being consistent with that was really powerful. I also think very black and white. So if I would have skipped a Wednesday, I probably would have stopped, but I never allowed myself to skip a Wednesday. So it kept me on track, and the value of that consistency.
By the way, if anyone's wondering why this podcast has come out every Thursday for 5 years, it's for that reason. It's literally exactly that reason. Is it's way easier to do another one than it is to not. You get to a point where it's easier to do it again than it is to not do it again. And, that's just a good place to be with those kind of positive habits. So just wanted to reflect that because I think it's super critical.
Totally. Yeah. I think that I don't think that people are really lazy. I think that it just depends on where you put the pressure on yourself. So I put the pressure on myself by having the first show. It was an open mic, the first show. And I just called 150 people on the phone and told them that this thing was happening. And then I called them again the next week and told them it was happening. And then I had the pressure of having to put on a good show because I didn't want to do crap. Putting my stuff out there was good because for a long time I'd been like, why does this person that's running this show, why do they have power to decide what's good and bad? They're terrible. They don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. Or I'm a really good host, but nobody ever hires me to host things. Me getting on stage and doing that every week and people seeing it, they realized that I was a good host. And
it's crazy how strong of a motivator in magic, how is that guy doing it? And he is so bad. And I could totally do that half asleep. I could do what he's doing. It'd be so much better if they brought oh my goodness, the amount of people that got into virtual by just thinking about all the other crappy people in virtual and being like, oh, I want to, do what all these people think they're doing is amazing. I mean, it's great. Any reason to get people into it is great. But I think that that's a really good kind of moment for everybody to feel is if at least one person who's shittier than you has made it.
Yeah.
And you you probably can make it too, so I do.
Well, for me, it's not even I can make it because that person made it. It's I need to make the thing that I see. When I go to the Magic Castle and I see somebody that's not good enough, I think magic has so much power. It has so much, it can be so great. I want to do a magic show now because I see that this audience is missing out on this thing that can be, and that's what I did with Booby Trap too. It was a lineup show. I wouldn't want anybody else to create a show like that because it is so monotonous to see act after act after act, and the host comes up every single time to talk. So I did everything I could to break that rhythm, to mess with the format, and to make it as good as I possibly could. I wanted people to experience the heart of variety entertainment and to really experience this humanity. So I set the context throughout the show for that because I think that stuff is really powerful. I think that magic and juggling and whatever is not a crutch. It's an actual amazing tool to connect with people and to show a really amazing side of humanity. So that's what I wanted to express in Booby Trap, and that's what I succeeded in doing.
Dude, it sounds like such an epic show and just an epic environment to be a part of. And I can relate in the sense of the home and things for entertainers of what we were doing here with the newest trick in the book and the art of magic, which was very similar. But the intensity of what Booby Trap was and the variety as well is something that I can't relate to and really is phenomenal just to be able to rise to the top. Let me ask a weird question about it. Did you find it hard in the sense of you mentioned performing as yourself, you're doing stuff on the street and all of a sudden you're starring in all these shows and you're like, well, that shouldn't have been that easy. That wasn't so much. I thought I'd have to work on this for 25 more years. Or, Booby Trap, it sounds like it went from not existing to existing and running for 5 years. Was it a hard thing? Was it kind of self-sustaining on its own? Did you have to really hustle with the marketing? What was it like to pull that thing off?
Well, I had like really good foundations having produced that cooking show in San Francisco and knowing a lot about marketing and knowing all the like most of the variety people in LA and the circus people. So I had really good stuff going for me. It was hard to keep going when it wasn't exciting. I ran into a lot of things of like, there are a lot of shows in well, LA sucks for live performance. People don't want to go to they'll go to a play because their friend is in it, because their friend is trying to get an agent and they needed a crowd. But people don't really see live entertainment as being for them in LA. Generally, it's just not in the culture like it is in New York or something. So that stuff was challenging, but I ran into a lot of stuff about there was a 4-minute limit on every act, and it's a hard limit. Like the band starts playing at 4 minutes if you're not done. And I come on stage and I'm like, get out of here. so like, I don't know, like Amazing Jonathan came and did the show and he was just game and he was awesome. But then the middle tier acts a lot of times complained about it. They're like, I need 15 minutes just to establish my character, man. Yeah. I'm like, that's not what the show is. So I did run into that stuff and I had doubts about stuff because of that for a long time. But I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know. I could list a million things that are hard about it.
I'm just wondering, like there's certain things that kind of, the newest trick in the book was more or less self-sustaining. As in, when it started, we had to do a lot of like, hey, come out to the show. Hey, posting about it and all that different stuff. But there just came a point where just like every show was sold out. We just had 5 magicians on the show. Each of them was 10 minutes. Like, we helped give people notes after the show, but it was an opportunity. It was like an open mic. So it wasn't, by definition, if it took 30% of our week to pull it off, it was a waste of our time because we had paid shows, we had private events, all this different stuff. So it had to kind of be self-sustaining in its own way. And I was just wondering if it felt like it was self-sustaining or it felt like, every week it took 3 of the 7 days in between the last Booby Trap and the next Booby Trap show to actually make the thing happen. Or if it wasn't so challenging.
There was a lot of full-time work on it, right. Full-time, all week. And then probably close to when we shut down, it was getting more of self-sustaining momentum, and myself and my co-producer could work on it for 1 day per week, like a full day.
But that literally took 5 years to get to.
Yeah. And it was LA. It's rough. But everything we did was built on the idea of word of mouth and building up the word of mouth. So the way I talked about the show during the show, the curation of the acts, the promotion, like we didn't promote names usually. We didn't like Reggie Watts is on the show. We didn't promote that he was going to be on the show. We would just have people show up and go, holy fuck, look at who's here.
Right.
So that
way you don't know when you show up who could be there. And
right. So they're buying a ticket for Booby Trap, not for Reggie Watts, because he has his own fan base. That's what we worked on the whole time, was like, how do we build up the word of mouth? How do we build up the quality level so that every time you go there, every time you tell somebody about it, you know that they're going to get a good show or that you're going to get a good show. Yeah. So it was a lot more work than sounds like your show is.
But listen, it was a lot of work. The newest trick in the book was a lot of work to get going, but certainly the last year or so of it was, we were sold out. We went from once a week to once a month, and we were sold out 3 months in advance for a free show. So we were like, okay, we would put up the next one 4 months from now, and then in the next month it would sell out. It was like 70 seats or something, and it would sell out. It was an open mic, free show, pass the hat, so it was hard to get going, but then there's a certain amount of just the ball rolling to keep the whole thing in process. One other thing I want to ask before we talk about kind of the now world, but you mentioned you had a real job and then you flew to Buskers Fest and then you like quit on the way back. Can you walk us through that moment and just like, not all people's lives have a crazy mic drop moment or like, I ran away and I never called them back, or that was when I, never went back to, so kind of walk us through the thinking of like, you were actually doing a job that was kind of exciting. You were working hard. It was kind of positive, felt like an escape from the monotony of performing. Then you had a performing zap and then you like call them and you're like, bye guys. Walk me through that.
Well, it was really sweet because my boss, like, she liked my sense of humor. That's how I got the job. And then she knew that I was a performer. I think I was stellar at problem solving and the marketing, coming at her with different ideas of marketing, but I'm not like, when you hire somebody for a job that's 9 to 5, you don't hire a person like me. You just don't. You hire a person who's like a little bit more even keeled and somebody who wants to make money. Like, I don't care. Like, I would have lived in my car if I needed to at that point. I didn't care. So we became friends over the time of working for her. And then I was working on this project remotely, and then I kind of outsourced some of the work to somebody else so that it could get taken care of while I was in New Zealand, just so that the project didn't fall flat. I wasn't doing a great job with it. And I was like, I want to make sure that I wrap this project up for you, but I think that I'm kind of done with this. And she was very kind and supportive, and it was great. I had also turned down a project earlier because it was like this. They got hired by this company that made a thumb drive for you to store all of your child's information on it in case your child got kidnapped. And so I was like, the only way to sell this is to terrify parents that their kids are going to get kidnapped. So I'm not going to participate. I won't do this job. And she was like, what? Like, everybody was just like confused by me saying no. So I wasn't on the best, I wasn't the best employee.
Yeah. So when they let you go, it was like, phew, that was a close one.
We were both happy. Yeah.
We almost did an ad about kidnapping children. That was a close one. Awesome. Okay. So let's kind of zoom forward a little bit. You had a show, obviously, the end of the world happened. Mayday, booby trap for the first time in 5 years. We're not doing it this Wednesday. Refund your tickets. And now you're helping performers. And you're also doing a lot of virtual events yourself now, solving some real problems. Talk to us about kind of your entrance into the world of virtual and how that journey was for you.
I was on Zoom before the pandemic because I started teaching online classes. So I was doing online webinars for like $40. You could take a class and learn how to make an email newsletter or whatever. So I was doing that. And then when the pandemic hit, Booby Trap shut down. The classes just all kind of dissolved because entertainment people didn't see how they could make money.
A newsletter if there's no events.
Yeah. So that stuff all fizzled, and I started doing I did some websites for people, for like other companies that weren't in entertainment and stuff. And then I started getting calls about other websites from performers, and I was like, you don't need a website, dude.
Yeah.
You have a major problem. Here's what it is. And then I started getting in these conversations with performers and helping them realign with what their real issues were. And that's about the time that I saw a video of you talking about newsletters, talking about how to grow a fan base. And I was like, I just contact people that are parallel thinkers to me. And my friend knew you. I asked him for an introduction.
Yeah.
and we talked, and you helped me get set up with a challenge that led into my consulting stuff. Yeah, it was a cool combination of things that happened at that time. My wife was pregnant, about to give birth. Booby Trap closed down, but Booby Trap was super awesome to me, and it was like my identity to a lot of people. But at the same time, it was a 200-seat bar, and it was made to make $0. Like, we wanted to break even. No matter what happened, we always wanted to break even. Even if we had a whole bunch of money come in, we wanted to spend that on making the dressing room better for the performers, or making the experience better for them somehow, or the better for the audience. So I was coming to a point where 200 people in a night seeing the most genius entertainment they could ever see wasn't enough. And I was like,
especially if you design it to lose money or break even.
Yeah. Well, I was fine with that. I was cool with that. I was flying all over the place and doing corporate gigs and doing fine, really fine.
Yeah.
But my band was Fire Leopard. They do improvisational rock music, and they could do anything, and they would come up with amazing stuff. And I'd be like, only 200 people saw that.
Right.
There's some crappy show at the Hollywood Bowl right now for 15,000 people. And these people are the only people that'll ever get to see that moment. So I was having I was like at a moment where it was kind of nice to stop booby trap for a second. I thought it was going to be like 3 weeks. So at the time, so
We
I
all
was pretty
did.
optimistic about it. And then it turned to consulting, and then I started seeing like all of the pieces of me, like Slumdog Millionaire, coming together to solve people's problems, and it became really amazing.
For many people, it was a perfect storm of things, that led to virtual. And one of the things that I realized was that when virtual struck, everybody lost their whole calendar. And at first that was a real negative, but then if you do it with enough intentionality, you end up filling your calendar with all of the right things, right? You start filling it with the things that you actually like. And then now, like a year later, we all get to look at our calendars and be like, how did I do? Like a year ago, it was clear. It was completely empty. And I've started to manually like redesign it. Am I happy with the way that I've redesigned it? And I think, it was funny. One of the things that we worked on more than anything is to go from you teaching a class where people pay to be a class versus like, hey, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to solve your problems in like a 1 hour class about an email newsletter. Like maybe I need to help you long term, and maybe I need to. And now all of a sudden you get to look at your calendar and be super pumped about what you're doing. And I love the overlap now of still entertainment, still, making waves, but also you kind of have those challenges that you were being given in marketing where like you're not revisiting the exact same problem every single day, and like you have this opportunity to try something new or bring creative solutions to problems. And it's just epic to see. And I think that for a lot of other people who are maybe reflecting on the times, like obviously it's really easy to long for the days that we don't have anymore that may or may not come back in however long or whatever. But instead, I think it's much more powerful to say like, okay, I now have full ability to craft a life that I want, instead of you having to be gone every Wednesday when you have a newborn coming into your life, like you get to craft it in a way that you want, and obviously every job has the things we don't like and the things we like, but certainly now we all have a little bit more ability to DJ how we want things to land than we did before. So I think it's just a big twist. Can you talk a little bit about that, about like kind of the change of your life, quality of life from before and kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, one major thing is that so Booby Trap was made to make zero money because I kind of didn't really want to compete on a financial level in the world. I would do these I would throw out a high number for a corporate gig, or my agent would take care of it, and I would make a bunch of money doing it, but I didn't really understand. I just kind of thought I was tricking them into hiring me.
Yeah.
And money would just I would do a whole bunch of work on Booby Trap, but then work less on something that was easy and paid me a lot of money. And all that stuff was very disconnected for me. And my idea of business and my idea of keeping track of finances and all that stuff was just a mess in a lot of ways. So when this stuff happened, I think, like you said, it gives us an opportunity to really face ourselves, face what we're doing, and make intentional decisions. And so I really wanted to learn what was going on with the finances and where that value stuff came from. And talking to people that I was helping, I could see it so much more clearly in them. Like, the person who's $200,000 of gigs canceled, they're talking to me about how they don't have anything that they can do now. They're just done. Like this one guy that had a lot of money cancel. He's older. He thought like, I got to get into doing Zoom shows. All these kids are doing Zoom shows and they're doing all these shows. I don't know how they're doing them, and they're making so much money. And I'm like, this was early on too. And I was like, dude, they're not making a ton of money. Your financial responsibilities are high. You have value in all these other areas that are going to help you beyond doing a Zoom show. So if you do like pre-recorded content for marketing companies, you're a smooth talker, you have these relationships with big companies. Like I started like showing him where his value is for real. Why? And he was like, I don't know why people hire me for these gigs, but they've been hiring me for years. Right. And I'm like, here's why. This thing and this thing and this thing. Look at that. And then I started seeing it in myself and saying like, this is a thing that I really need to commit to, is understanding why do people value me and what is there here that's worth money. And it's this problem solving.
Well, let's talk about kind of value of a magician right now, because this is something I'm like super super pumped about. When you were running Booby Trapped in LA, any given magician, the value of a given magician to a variety show, which has multiple magicians every week for 5 years, is not as high, maybe, as the value of a magician for a corporate event who's struggling to do anything fun with the people that they've been dying to have something fun for them to do. Then like a magician is really valuable, then it's like, oh crap, like you're solving a lot of problems. So I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of your take on the value of a performer right now. Are performers more valuable, less valuable? How do you feel about it?
The value is completely different for different things, for different events. With Booby Trap, performers were performing for free. Everybody was a volunteer, including myself. And people would say, can you just give me $50 for whatever? And I'd be like, nope. Because I had magicians coming out of I had tons of magicians coming to perform, and good ones. So I didn't have a magician problem.
Yeah.
And I sometimes had a quality level problem where everybody was at a convention, a whole bunch of people were at a convention and whatever. So then I had to like, either I had to be the quality in the show, or
right.
I had to rebook a little bit,
right.
But I didn't have a magician problem. So it was very low value. And what I gave them was I gave them photos, video of their performance, badass audience, incredible community. I gave them the greatness. So I gave them stuff that wasn't money, and I got that same stuff. So I knew that it was important. When I do a corporate show, I'm trying to protect the risk of the corporation. Like if I'm at a Fortune 500 company, they want to make sure that I'm not going to be racist or sexist or even like on the edge of wokeness right now. And they want to make sure that I make them look good and provide the standard level of quality that they need. And that's not even goodness. That's not even like being funny. There's just like so much stuff in what I do and the experience that I have that provides them extreme value. Like what I say is like, I don't charge more money when I go to somebody's mansion than when I go to their trailer to perform, because they have more money. That's like a way that a lot of performers think. They think, oh, the mansion person has more money, so they need to pay me more. I know that I'm going to show up. I'm not going to get like food on their expensive carpet. I'm not going to embarrass them in front of the mayor. I am not going to mess up all the things that they have at risk. But when I go to perform in somebody's trailer or somebody's apartment, their only problem is they just want to have a little bit of fun. And they're not really worried about protecting all that stuff.
Yeah, I think the way you said it before was like totally right on the money, which is that what we are trying to do is to be safe. Is they're worried about all of the different liabilities that bringing a stranger into their world could be, and the price is more in reference to their confidence than it is in your self-perceived quality. I once had a funny conversation with my brother, who I told him what I was charging at the time for something, for walk around magic or something. And he said to me like, Jonah, I hate to break it to you, but I would not pay a couple $1,000s to have a magician walk around my event. And I said to him, me neither. I've never and will never pay a magician a couple $1,000s to walk around my event. But certainly the people who are solving that expensive of a problem. And like, for me to think about how much I would pay to bring a magician to mingle around my event is completely meaningless compared to how much of a problem it is solving for them, right? If it's solving a real serious problem, then $1,000 to make sure your event is guaranteed fun for sure and safe, and there's nothing racist or whatever that's going to be said or whatever, is a steal, right? Yeah. It's a steal to be able
Nobody gets fired. You have no lawsuits.
Yeah.
That's
it's a steal.
Saving you a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a steal. So I love that.
I think like a really stark example is I got called by this company that they know a lot of magicians. They've worked with a lot of variety performers. I've worked with them for a low price before, because I know that I'm the same thing. I'm like a dime a dozen for them, but they really like me. So they called me to host this event for them, this virtual event. And I said, yeah, I can host, but I think I can do more for you. So if you give me a day, I can call you back tomorrow and tell you, like, and I talked through what the whole process of their event was and everything. And I was like, I think I can do more for you. So the next day I called him back. I'd done some research about what things would cost and how things would work with Zoom, because I hadn't really done much Zoom stuff. Yep. And called him back and gave him a total solution that was 12 times as much money as if I would host the event for him. And they were like, okay. And it wasn't because they knew exactly who I am. They know me. They've used me a bunch. They know the market. They know who can perform and do all that stuff.
It's because last year for their year-end party, they spent $250,000. And this year they're going, okay, well, Zoom is $20 a month. And then it's an extra 50 if I want, all 1,000 people there. And now I got to make sure that I have an epic event for my 500 employees. Last year was $200,000. If it costs $20,000 this year, that is an epic, perfect. If it works and it costs $20,000, it's an epic, amazing steal for them that they will never get a deal like this ever again in their lives, right? So I think that that message is exactly what people need to hear. And let me just put it another way, or let me ask you to put it another way. If there's a magician right now who is listening to this and they are unclear if they are valuable in virtual or if they have value to offer, what would you tell that person?
I would tell them 99% of everything is terrible. Most likely you're in the 99%. So start to work to get out of that. But you need to create stuff that is good and then charge less for it than it's worth. That's the whole game. Mm-hmm. I think more than people feeling not valuable is that they feel like they need to push and they need to really sell and convince people. But if you are able to clearly communicate what is useful to them, you'll get paid well for what you do. So in this, I'll just go back to this case of this company that I charged 12 times as much. I showed them what was wrong. They thought they had a host. They thought they needed a host for their event. And I said, yeah, if you would like to send me the costume and the set pieces and you guys handle the music cues and you run all the tech and make sure that it's secure so that nobody breaks in and you script it out, I'm glad to show up and host the event for you. And then I said, but I think you have a really high responsibility. These are engaged people that are really, they deserve something great. And this is the biggest party you've ever been able to put on. So it's a tough job. And I would like to help you if I can. So this is the bigger thing that I propose to you. I think that's it's a long answer. I'd say if people feel like they don't have value, it's time to empathize with your customer. It's time to think about what they're really going through, what their challenges are. If they're afraid of losing their job, if they're afraid of looking like an idiot in front of their boss, if they're afraid of looking uncool, or they want status, they want everybody to know how cool they are and that they're in the know of how to make things awesome. You're solving big problems for them, and that's worth money. It's not about being able to do the best double lift or whatever.
100,000,000%. And another way that I've said it before, which I think is right on the money, is how you value your own thing. Like if you are saying to yourself, like, how could I possibly charge $1,000 for a virtual magic show? How can I charge my in-person show was worth $750? Then this is not as good as my in-person show. It's got to be worth $500. I don't know how, but how can it be worth $1,000? What's happening there is selfish pricing. Is you are pricing something not based on the magnitude of problem that it solves, but you are pricing something based on how you selfishly think of your own stuff, which, I don't know, on a good day, you could think that your stuff is good, and on a bad day, you could think your stuff is bad, right? But the volume of problem that it solves for a client, that doesn't change. It changes client to client, but, it doesn't. If I'm feeling really confident today because I landed 2 bookings, I don't double my rates because I'm more confident. It's about how big of a problem you are solving. So I think.
Yeah. And I think I was grossed out by that before as an artist too. I was like, I kind of felt like, no, but I just have to be good. I just have to do a really great thing and then people will like it. I didn't really understand what great things I was doing that aren't just on stage. What great things I'm doing to like relieve somebody, to like help them feel at peace, to help them feel powerful, to help them really excel at their job. And so I came in as like kind of a like complainy, like immature, I don't know, struggling artist or whatever,
Yeah.
instead of like, hey, I'm an expert in this realm. You're trying to put together an event. How about if I help you? I'd love to help you.
Yeah.
And that'll make the entertainment way better because the stage isn't going to be in front of a dance floor or whatever.
Exactly what you just said is right. Is like, we owe it to them to at least speak up, to offer the solutions that, you know, they're having, if we're the ones that have them, because otherwise we're going to be the ones dealing with it. Like you said before, like, sure, let me know what set pieces are going to, oh, none, there's nothing. Well, this event is going to be weird. You know, like, it's not going to look good. And like, us actually speaking up about those things and voicing how we feel about those things is totally right on the money.
I was panicked that they were going to ask me to host it. I was like, I am going to show up. I'm going to look horrible. It's going to be boring. The format's not good. And all these people are going to just sit there staring blankly at me. I'm not going to have the chance to entertain them because I don't have the venue for it unless I produce it.
I love it. And I have a line in my sales calls that I use all the time, which I think is a great line. Anybody listening can borrow it, which is, I say, I've been known to give people in HR raises. And then after I say that, I tell them all of the random things I'm going to send them. So I say, oh, you know, I'm going to send you my slide deck, and I'm going to send you this and that, and I'm going to send you this. And then I go, and by the way, you can just tell them that you made the slide deck, okay? Don't worry about it. You don't have to tell them that I made it. And she goes, oh, ha, ha, ha. But why am I doing that? Well, exactly like you said. They're worried that their boss, who taxed them with this problem to solve, that they're not going to be able to solve it. And they're worried that they're da-da-da. And I'm like, great, don't worry. I'm going to squash all your worries. Your boss is going to love you just because you found me. And all you have to do is ask me and I'll get it for you. You don't worry about it. It'll be done. And all of a sudden, we're in the mindset of problem solving and not in the mindset of like, well, here's my show. Here's how much it costs. You know, here's how much of it. No. We're in the problem solving mindset, which I think it's not about me. It's about you, right? They're the ones with the money. They're the ones paying us. They're the ones with the problem to solve. So we want to be a little more focused on their problem than we are on our solution. It's like, you know, you go get a burger or you go to a restaurant, you know, and they ask you like, you know, like, how may I help you? You know, they're not just like, number two, good, number two is number two. You know, they got to learn a little bit about what you need, and they're going to give you some support. So I think that kind of focusing on them is a really great thought in terms of value. Is there anything else that you want to use this opportunity to tell magicians who are struggling emotionally or just struggling, you know, business wise, marketing wise, about the world right now, about what they can do, what they should do? What do you want to tell the magicians of the world? Yeah,
we're always limited. We are constantly limited by things, and the universe is always trying to kill us. Like, there could be a meteor that comes in. We would never see it coming, and it could come in and crash into the earth right now. They're like, look at a picture of space. There are rocks everywhere. There's all kinds of diseases, all kinds of stuff that's trying to kill us all the time. And we don't know what it is. We've had this opportunity to face a lot of the limitations that we have and look at them in the face and really be confronted by them right now. And that's rough. It's hard to do that. But what we can do is we can help to support each other, talk to each other, and think like you said at the beginning of the podcast, like, how do we realign our language? How do we realign our thinking in order to understand, appreciate, and move on the things that we care about right now? I think that the most dangerous people in the world are people that see themselves as victims. We have the United States has a president that just left that saw himself as a victim, and that was what caused a lot of the random things that he would do. And we see that in Hitler and a bunch of different people. The most dangerous people are people that feel like they're victims. And so our jobs as entertainers, just from a entertainment standpoint, our jobs is to fill ourselves up with gratitude and joy and be able to share that with other people. But also that's going to help to move us forward. The more that we understand that our lives are abundant in so many ways just by being alive, that's going to empower us to give so much more to other people. And we're all in this business to give.
Dude, a million %. Like, the abundance thing is one that I want to really take a moment to touch on, which is there is unlimited everything. There's unlimited large companies you could do work for. There's unlimited small companies you do work for. Do I feel silly that I taught you everything I know about helping entertainers for you to go into? No! If entertainers want your help, they'll get your help. If they want my help, they get my help. And similarly, I know a lot of magicians do this, and let me use this opportunity. When you're on the Zoom Magic and Mentalism group and you hear about the success of another performer that is not at your detriment, it is not at your cost. It is not at your cost. Like, say it again. It is not you don't lose because they win. We all collectively win. Magic, the popularity of magic in the zeitgeist does more for the amount of bookings that you'll get than you will ever do. Right? Than you will ever do, which means you can be more thankful for all magicians choosing to do something than you are angry at them, because if they weren't, you wouldn't even be getting the opportunities in the first place, right? So I think that I love what you're saying, and say for every field, right? For every field, this is true. The abundance is outrageous, and that is the biggest opportunities. Let's not feel sad about ourselves. Let's not, especially if we're not trying, right? Especially if we're not trying, right? Give it a go. Give it a whirl, and really, it's there's unlimited solutions, unlimited ways that you could be useful or valuable to your clients, just completely unblocked, and I really love that. We're kind of getting to the end of the episode, and all of the episodes kind of have some wrap-up questions. And the first one is the endless chain. So in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that would be a perfect addition to the show. So the only caveat is that you need to be able to put us in contact. You can't just name the most famous person you ever heard of. And we cannot have interviewed them already. Who do you think would be a phenomenal addition to this show?
Have you done Amazing Jonathan?
Yes.
Have you done Mark Collier?
No.
Mark Collier, amazing, clumsy card magician that does everything. He's amazing.
Love that.
He's like Leonard Green falling apart.
Dude, that is epic. Very excited to connect with him. The other question is about modern magic. So what's something you like about the world of magic going on right now, and something you don't like?
So I like taking a format or a genre and breaking it apart and making something amazing out of it, and just exploiting every single aspect of it. So when we were doing Booby Trap, it's in a bar that's crappy, and I'm making jokes about how the soap is too thick to come out of the pumps, and the people are in folding chairs, and I'm using every aspect. I love that. And so now we're in this thing where there aren't even expectations for what a Zoom magic show is or what a Zoom whatever is. And I'm hoping to see more. I haven't seen nearly enough of people exploiting what this medium is, and figuring out how to better pre-show stuff with emails, do better post-show stuff with continuing the mystery or continuing the experience. I want to see people using every single technological thing in order to make the stuff better. I want to see people using the interaction opportunities of stuff. So that's what I'm excited about, is what people are doing with the virtual thing, but also with the live performance. The thing that I love about the 4 minutes of Booby Trap is that I get to see somebody that has drilled into something so hard. And I tell people to not do something new. I tell people to kill. Yeah. So they do the 20-year act that's 4 minutes long, and it's just amazing to me. I still love that.
Dude, and was there something you don't like about the world of magic right now?
When the pandemic started, I was I'm not doing Zoom shows. I'm not doing this stuff online. And I don't think that it's going to be good. It's just a patch until we come back. And I still hear people denigrating it. And I think that's a bummer to me when I see people saying like, oh, well, I gave in and I finally did a Zoom magic show, or I don't know, I needed to get on stage so bad that I did a stand-up show online. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you think that's funny? You think it's funny to crap on it? Like, you have the opportunity right now to be the best online stand-up comedian that exists. If you did 200 shows, just getting your friends online and doing stand-up and figuring out how to only do a stand-up show for online, you would probably be the best in the world at it. And everybody would call you up to write their jokes. Everybody would call you up to do their corporate shows. You'd be doing so awesome. But instead you're saying that it sucks.
Yeah. There's a lot of negativity in it, and I think it stops people from actually doing the amazing creative thing. So I really love that. The last bit is the take-home point. People are listening to this whole thing, learning a lot. What's something that you want them to know? What's something you want them to remember, something to take home from this whole episode?
While Booby Trap was happening, I was remotely producing it because I got this job hosting a variety show in Australia. So I was hosting that show, and then also Booby Trap I'd FaceTime with Booby Trap and I'd book it and everything remotely, and Miranda was taking care of everything. But when I was doing that, I was in this gig that the contract wasn't being fulfilled. The stage was dangerous for performers. Things were just like weird and not good enough. People were putting on makeup in a public restroom for this show that they were paid pretty well for. It was weird. And I was like, my wife and I were both doing it together, and we were not happy with it. And it took us a lot of courage for us to leave and to quit because the contract wasn't being fulfilled. And then all the other performers in the show stayed. And I realized I've compromised a lot on these gigs. I've done a lot of things for people that were crap, that were bad opportunities. And I saw these performers also coming up with the same justifications for why they were staying in this job where they weren't getting paid. They weren't getting paid. Like, one guy was in the contract for 3 months without getting paid. And he was still like, we got to do this. This is show business. This is just what it is. What do you think? This other show, do you think they were getting treated better? And so I came back to America on fire to really help performers thrive, because as long as we're trying to survive, we're not going to be able to create the great stuff that moves us forward. We're not going to be able to create the entertainment that changes people's lives. And when entertainers come to me with a fear that technology, that Netflix is going to be better than buying a ticket, I'm like, well, first we have to thrive. We have to really take care of ourselves and do some awesome stuff for each other. And then we can make some amazing things that people can't get from Netflix or Instagram.
I love it. I think, what you said there about it being up to us to make it better than Netflix, it being up to us to make those kind of experiences. It's not, the line isn't already drawn in the sand. Netflix used to mail people DVDs. So they created something unique, and so can we. So I really love that. The last thing before we go is plugs. Where can people find you? Where can people find your work if they want to work with you and do something fun with you?
So I have a website, scot.fun, and you can go there. I'll make a page for this podcast, scot.fun/DIM for Discourse in Magic. You can go there and check out. I'll reference some different things, and I'll give you something free. I don't know, something good and free.
Something good and amazing and free from Scot.
I just want to keep helping people thrive. So I'm giving stuff away for free on the Zoom Magic group. I'm giving stuff away for free on my blog. I'm giving away free challenges for people to learn their branding. And I want to help you thrive. If you're a badass, then I can fill in some gaps for you. Then I'd be glad to consult for you. But only if you're great.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As mentioned in the episode, if you want to learn more about Scott and what he's up to right now, go to scott.fun/DIM. That's Discourse in Magic, and check it out. He's got some awesome, wonderful bonuses for you. And as usual, if you have any questions, concerns, feelings, opinions, emotions, ideas, you know where to find me at info@discourseinmagic.com. And make sure to check us out on some social media. You know, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Tinder. No, I'm kidding. Twitter. We're everywhere. And I've been hanging out on Clubhouse. What do you guys think of Clubhouse? I would like to know. Well, thanks for being here, and I'll see you all next Thursday. Peace.